Well, let's dig a little bit deeper into a preview of those AMD earnings after the close. We turn now to Hans Mosesmann. He's a top-rated analyst at Raymond James, and he rates the stock in neutral. He's joining us now from St. Petersburg, Florida. Hans, thank you for joining us. So to go to Adam's point about this sort of David versus Goliath nature of AMD and Intel, Intel coming out saying that indeed its numbers were looking good. Are some of those same factors going to be helping AMD as well?
Certainly. They're seeing some of the same dynamics. The server market has come back a little bit. The mobile market has come back, or we're seeing better than seasonal trends. So overall, expect to see AMD see some of the same trends that Intel did. Perhaps not the super gross margins. And remember, AMD doesn't have the fab anymore, so they don't have the nice leverage on the upside. But overall, I think a pretty solid dynamic here for AMD in the quarter, and actually in terms of their outlook.
So you mentioned the fab. Again, AMD going fabless, as it's called. In other words, it doesn't make the chips anymore. It just designs them. As you say, that's not necessarily going to help push up the gross margins, but in the long run, do you think this was a good move?
Yes, it is a good move. AMD is not, or does not have the wherewithal to really fill a leading-edge fab on its own, so it makes a lot of sense. Now, it does actually push up gross margins. It just doesn't take them to the historical peak levels that you're seeing with Intel. So you have good things and bad things by being fabless. The good thing is that you should see a more sustainable gross margin level, or one that is less volatile. And then from that sense, that's a very good thing for AMD.
And talk to us about graphics chips as well. Do you think AMD is gaining market share on that front, and how close is it getting to where NVIDIA is?
Well, that's a good point. They have dominated the very high end of the graphics market here for about 5, maybe 6 months. So they've gained market share there. Overall, they've lost a little market share in notebooks and desktops, and we'll have to wait and see how it plays out in Q1. They're probably evenly matched, and look, as the year progresses, that NVIDIA, a little late, but coming back at the high end, they'll probably gain some share back. But overall, I think from an AMD perspective, having both x86 processors and a very solid graphics technology and base, they're very well positioned over Intel over the longer term. So that is a net positive for AMD as you look into the future.
And how close do you think that AMD is to delivering reliable profitability after all the volatility that we've seen in the earnings and the problems that the company's had?
Yes, so now AMD does have some ownership with Global Foundry. So even though they don't own outright this foundry or the fab side of the equation, they are going to get some of the profits and losses likely here over the next several quarters. But if you look at just the profit, the product company, you're probably going to see that business become profitable and continue to be profitable over the next several quarters, as we think we're at the early stages of an enterprise upgrade cycle in Windows 7. So if you exclude that the losses coming from Global Foundries, they're going to make money, and over time you would expect that Global Foundries will get other foundry customers, and that will stop being a headwind and become hopefully a tailwind.
So it sounds like you're pretty positive here, but you don't recommend buying the shares. Why not?
Well, everything's it's more of a nuance. The stock is done fantastic over the past several months. They've already spun off the manufacturing side of the equation. Now you have to show some consistency in terms of gaining market share. I think on the margin they're probably going to hold at best, maybe lose a little market share. And in that kind of dynamic, it's tough to recommend the stock outright. But in the midterm, look for these new products called Fusion, where you're actually taking a microprocessor and a graphics core and putting them into a single sliver of silicon, something that Intel's not doing today. And that has the potential of being very interesting, and we're looking very closely at that as a potential opportunity to upgrade the stock in the future. But at this point, we're happy on being on the fence.
All right, Hans Mosesmann of Raymond James talking to us about AMD, which Adam will be breaking down for us after the bell. Thanks a lot, Hans. Appreciate it.